Welcome back, Fortnite fam, to the FNCS Finals, day number 1. Game number 2, going over to Queasy and Victor V. I almost called him VZ. That would have been crazy. Shout outs to them. Crazy stuff out of that last game. I did mention the leaderboard, though, and the craziness is kind of starting to develop. So again, just a reminder, we're playing for 12 games, 6 today, 6 tomorrow. So this is just the results after game 2. Everything's chill. Nobody freak out. 3 duos currently breaking into the triple digits. Higgs and Curve still holding on to that number 1 spot, which is pretty insane. Quite a ways out ahead of everybody else. Kelly, a 6th place with 2 elims means they need to hold on to that number 1 spot.
Yeah, Curve with that solo, kind of sticking to the back end of
If
zone
he
in that
to
end game there,
freaking win
definitely allowed them
the
to clutch just a little
offense,
bit more placement points.
He'd maybe
seeing them sticking into that first place spot is
we
great
thought
to
to
see
kid.
for them. And
No
obviously,
doubt.
if we're going to be talking about great, we got to talk about Clicks and Rapid. What a great way to show up on the main stage for day number 1. And you know, there was a moment where we saw Clicks and Rapid take, or they were on second height around zone 8, peeking up to height, and then they steal it, but they stole it with Rapid and Clicks having barely any builds. But this elimination onto Javi is what allowed Rapid to get this incredible refresh and be able to kind of control high ground for a lot longer than I initially thought they were going to do, Vivid.
Yeah, actually, I thought Clicks and Rapid were going to go ahead and win this game, but we did, of course, see Noxy and Dash pull out one of those like major 1 plays that we saw a bunch, right? Kind of hanging back into the storm. Of course, it was a little bit easier to do it in major number 1 because you did have the overdrive grenades kind of combined with the flowberry back then. So now a lot of teams don't usually do it, but Noxy and Dash kind of bringing that into fruition here in major number 2, kind of caught Clicks and Rapid off guard. That being said, it was still a great game for them. You could see they're now in 6th place. They went up the leaderboard 19 placements. They weren't, of course, the only team to fly up the leaderboard, as we did see our game 2 winners are Queasy and Victor V fly up 45 placements up the leaderboard. But the cool thing here is that 2nd through 10th are only actually kind of dispersed by just 22 points. So everything is very, very close right now.
I'm looking at that those triple digits right now at the top there. Ritual, Cold. I mean, you're right though, Viv, right? It's still very close, especially just after the first 2 games of the competition. So many of these duos don't feel like, you know, if you told me, hey, this was like the final game, like if this was game 12, like they are all so into this right now. You can tell, Kelly, they're really giving it everything they have. I mean, even at the beginning of this game, right, we had that crazy clutch out of Veno. Like, these games have not disappointed.
No, watching the end game and seeing it beat all the top competitors that we've seen time and time again. Cold versus Shadow in that moment, and I think it was Shadow that actually came out on top. I actually don't know if he got the refresh from that though, because I think there was just so much chaos going on that even though you have these big names like Cold as a solo, Shadow as a solo as well, it just, there's only so much you can do. And obviously Cold and Ritual currently at the top of our leaderboard right now, looking to be pretty good, but it's Cold and Ritual. I know that they want to win.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they need to actually pick up in the eliminations category because right now they're playing super consistent. I mean, a 6th place, a 5th place, but they only have 4 eliminations in the first 2 games there. A team that we did not talk about that kind of broke into the top 10 there. We kind of mentioned them after game number 1. They were in 15th place. Acorn and Bolts have now entered that top 10 territory after that game number 2 there, where they went ahead and picked up 8th place with 4 eliminations of their own. And again, with how close 10th and 2nd place are right now, this is still pretty much anybody's game. Of course, we're only 2 games in, so I don't want to start to call things early here. But yeah, Acorn and Bolts seemingly kind of picking it up here on the back foot of actually Acorn being left alive as a solo to kind of clutch up a couple of points.
Oof. And once again, I'm so glad that we got to see his solo clutch at the start of this show, that we got to be just fortunate enough to witness for Heats, and Acorn once again proving that if it's down to him, he is going to be able to do whatever he can to make sure that his team is still able to garner just a few more points. So glad to see them break into the top 10. And although, Zeke, I don't know if we have necessarily a breakdown of them, but Yuz and Sharkman, 2nd place, currently kind of showing some of our top teams up.
I know, it's crazy, right? Like, this has been an insane first 2 games. We've got 30 seconds before we jump back in the game. I wanted to get your guys' thoughts very quickly. Again, we have to remind ourselves that this is a 12-game format. Though I kind of mentioned, like, hey, a lot of these teams are coming out swinging, we have to remember they have to do this over the course of 12 games, right? Like, if this was 6 games, hey, this is the pace we want to be at. But Kelly, with 12 games to go, we got to make sure we save enough in the tank for tomorrow.
100%. And we've talked about historically how some players and duos do better on day 2, day 1. Maybe they're really good at VOD reviewing and kind of seeing what they can do to make some changes. And Vivid, I think that we're going to be seeing some of these teams as well make some changes for day 2.
Yep, of course, would not be surprised. That's what we kind of love about the 2-day formats. All of our teams can kind of have the opportunity to adapt. But for now, still in day number 1, game 3, Zeke. Very, very excited to see how it pans out.
Well, Viv, it's ready. Let's find our seats on the battle bus for game number 3.
Already, Monster, it's looking like Higgs and Curve through 2 games are looking pretty consistent. Curve has the most eliminations and second most damage.
Yeah, you know, it's kind of crazy. Curve just finding his confidence this year after that FNCS championship win with Veno. I'm thinking he took away so many key learnings from that he is really looking to start excelling himself amongst the elite players. And hey, at the end of the day, Jacob, they're showing it.
Yeah, and I think on the other side of that coin, kind of Higgs, the same thing. You know, going into the Summit land, Clix and Higgs, they won a Division Cup. They were on a high. They were like, we could actually win this. Summit land happens. They dud out. They break up. Higgs kind of blames himself. It's my fault, my IGLing. And now he took that role here as the IGL, letting Curve frag out. We can see if that continues because game 3 is ready. So let's jump right into it.
Well, one thing's for certain, round after round, Fortnite never ceases to surprise us. You know, last game, the biggest upset, though, was watching Agers and Veno catch that massive clutch and then get third-party by the teams that are lurking nearby. I am curious to see how this one's going to play out. What type of micro adjustments can we see out of Agers and Veno? Because when you start dropping games like that, you see how the leaderboard can begin to gap away from you. And that's going to be a major problem if you're trying to qual to the LAN.
It's got to have a little bit of frustration in it as well. Veno Agers winning the actual off-spawn fight versus all of the teams that were actually there until eventually get third party. Just Cayenne, a little bit of a bad beat, hits the weapon spawn on the outskirts, which leaves his teammate to get 2v1 against Dozier and Ishu. But at least it's so early on in the game. There's a lot of splits. There's a lot of loot. He can get a ton of gold to try to get his teammate back in the game. But now I see it. We go back on over to Latte Landing. It seems like one team might not necessarily be in the POI, but still around the outskirts.
Yeah, this is really interesting. You see what happens when you start getting beat down like that at your drop. You start to second guess your chances to the LAN event, so you try to play or pivot to a different strategy. Well, for Veno Agers, the strat doesn't change much for them, but Veno is always looking to set up the lurk. That's the one thing about his playstyle that you can never really prepare for, is where is he hiding? What does he have up his sleeve? He's one of the most, again, sneaky players we've seen as far as the way he has the ability to execute the game plan. Agers hiding nearby in the other building as well. And look, they just have Madden and Chance kind of spooked out here, right? They're just holding down the fort at this point.
Yeah, I feel like it's not only necessarily the players at the POI, it's the result of what happened in that last game. Hey, we could fight it, we could possibly win it, but there's no guarantee Void and Magma ain't gonna come crash this party, or Reet and Cooper for that matter. We saw them rotate on over from Wonky Land early. As a jump back on over to Moneymaker and F9, contested against Oliver, OG, and Xpon. Moneymaker, F9 are essentially hoping that Xpon and Oliver OG forget they even exist. So that way when they rotate around towards this vending machine to farm, he could try to hit a cheeky little shot. Oliver OG just feels a little bit too comfortable here.
Oh my gosh, wait a second. Oliver, though, pops this big shield here. Maybe the senses are starting to tingle just a little bit right now, but he comes out. F9 is there with a monster shot and then jumps into the box to wrap him up. And you know Oliver is like, what just happened? It all ended so fast, and now they look to collapse here. F9 and Moneymaker, man, talk about surprise, surprise. They've done very good throughout the heats, playing this very passive endgame style. And you know what? It's showing up strongly here. Had they not actually fallen short last game, they would be very much towards the top, possibly even second place on the leaderboard.
Yeah, and they're actually playing this one pretty well, rotating up from their actual drop to kind of lurk on this. You could see by their material count, even before Oliver OG went down, they had little to nothing. So they're really kind of playing for this fight here to be a source of all their damage, their surge, and a good pile of their loot as X-Pawn being dropped down to less than 100 actual HP. Tries to make a move in the box, but it's Moneymaker and Fanayan who take him down. And the interesting thing is, Monster, I know it's only 2 games. We're getting into our 3rd, but if the tournament were to end now, Moneymaker and Fanayan would have locked up that 6th and final spot on NA.
Yeah, they're jumping up. These Elam points are definitely rewarding at this point in time, and you saw just how much of the excellent use even of the scanner there in the end, worth just putting it all on the line to secure those quick Elams. Meanwhile, Curve and Higgs have continued to play consistent, the most overly consistent team clearly, as they are 60 points ahead of the rest of the pack here.
60 points, it's like a 1 bad game cushion. Maybe 2, depending on where the rest of the competition lies if they do have that bad game, but they just need to continue this consistency here. Not make any risky plays unless they have to. So we're seeing the other side of the map. Heatwave Harbor, good stop for Shadow and Virgo. They did get the Mythic Striker pump this time from that Duck game, something they didn't have in the last one. They both ended up with 2 gold pumps, but the Mythic is the one that gets the one shot off as Yamzo and Josh end up outside of the Sanctuary this time around.
I was gonna say, I like that. Giamzo, yup, this is the duo right here. Look out for. They've been doing pretty well, right? After they patched up their kind of early game surge, you know, it's about pushing it just a little bit further now. A couple little small touches to the playstyle. We'll surely see them fly up this game. This right here is already a bit of a different approach, right, to their general strategy, as they're just straight taking the fight against Diminish and Javi.
I'm not going to say they have a ton of familiarity here in terms of Josh and Yamzo, but they did attempt to land here. Game 1 of evals. They were contested. They got beat off of the drop and ended up going somewhere else, but it goes to show that maybe it's in the back of their minds. Just trying to disrupt the whole game plan and the pathing of a lot of these teams already. Having diminished the next one in their line of sight, we see Peterbot and Pollo. I wouldn't say they're contested at Sinister Strip, but a whole nother team of Acorn and Bolts are looking to get daring.
Yeah, what is it with Acorn and Bolts just being so close to Peterbot and Pollo? It's almost like they're asking for trouble every single game. But this time around, they get a little close to the sun. You can feel the warmth coming from Peterbot and Pollo. Things kind of simmer down. Pollo's got the distance here. He's just putting shots down at the moment. A lot of loot to fight here. Fight for here, I should say. Pollo still not quite letting it up, though, as he backs off towards Peterbot.
I wonder if this is some sort of Acorn strategy. Disrupt Peterbot and Pollo. Don't let them feel comfortable. And I know there's not a lot of time between games, but if they can find a few seconds to go into replay mode, figuring out what's going wrong for their competition, and maybe try to make a play to exploit it. But from Peterbot and Pollo to Webster and Encrypted, Acorn and Bolts are just kind of hunkered down around the Sinister Strip mending machine, just seeing what comes their way and how they can utilize it as an advantage.
Well, whatever Acorn and Bolts are doing, it's working pretty well for them. They've gotten to 13th place and an 8th. All that separates them from the rest is a couple more eliminations. They can pick that up just a bit in the end game. They'll be flying up and coasting towards that top 2. Don't forget, like, if you look at the top 11 overall placement points, anyone in this 80-point range, like, you are as good as being in the conversation to win this tournament right now. So we have 11 teams that are playing very, very high-level, consistent Fortnite at the moment.
Okay, I give them credit. These gamers, I know they're professionals, tier 1s, but we have Observer, and I don't see the guy out there. And they're over here taking shots, getting their surge. Yemity in the distance, trying to stay back over towards Cluster Coast. You got to imagine visuals and threats already rotated on out, so he's just trying to get whatever they got left behind. There is a vault there, so there could be plenty. Could be a good strategy for them. As you see in the feed, King taking down Causers, Rise getting some damage, Yuz and Sharkman though. And even though they're, I want to say like kind of triple contested, double contested, it all depends on how you actually landed this drop. Yuz and Sharkman have been beating almost everybody in the actual drop spot here. They have kind of progressively getting better. At one point, we're first place in the overall heat. So this is a team I'm kind of looking at that I don't think anybody has on their radar yet, and they need to put them on their radar soon because they could be a threat for a global spot.
Yeah, just like King and Craze have managed to find their way onto everyone's radar, you can see why for good reason. 2 eliminations here, fighting one of those few teams landing on the outskirts. many and more to come here as the day continues to develop. Craze King taking very minimal punishment in that fight as well. Now look at this. You have Sleepsy and Donnie possibly looking to come towards this machine as well. And this is just going to fall right into the hands of King and Craze, where again, these elimination points really do start to separate you from everyone else. Here's Cooper and Tweed. Thinking about setting up their rotate right now, but they spotted the team out there.
They have to, instead of just clearing the POI, you know, that's one thing you really don't think of in moments like this, is like you almost got to clear the water as well. That is the direction they are going to rotate to. Of course, they can go the whole opposite way. It would just take infinitely longer, and the chances of that side of the zone being kind of more stacked up is going to be very, very high. So they're probably just waiting a little bit longer, hit the mending machine one more time, grab an extra med kit, let that team rotate on out so they can continue with the game plan they have set forth.
Here's a much different strategy for Bugha and Braids. They've rotated into the cluster coast now to actually get active here. Find a couple shots here onto visuals and threats. They're almost denying them just a free, clean pass here. And look at this, the zone is playing towards the south. So this is not exactly a max pull like Bugha and Braids have had to kind of deal with the last 2 games. It's a bit closer. However, they have taken a lot of storm damage here. Jump in with Yuz and Sharkman though. They found themselves on the low ground, almost in a defensive hold up against Nut and QTECD.
They have some sort of a card there for a vault. Not sure exactly where it actually leads to, but that's an extra resource there. If they could somehow survive this fight, make their way on out, but CDZ and Nut just not running to give up. There's a mending machine down below. Possible damage if they can land it onto Sharkman and Yuz, but for Sharkman and Yuz, it's almost the whole opposite. This vending machine here is a focal part of their strategy, and since the zone isn't that far away, they probably don't want to rotate too soon.
No, they have plenty of heals as well to take their time. All these full builds are all theirs. This full catacomb to work with, there it is. They go rotate out, shockwave their way across. Now, looking at their shockwaves, they only have 3 in the inventory there, so pretty critical resource that they're using early here. Meanwhile, Sleepsy and Donnie, we knew they were coming up. I was thinking they would have almost fallen into the trap of Kingling and Craze, but they seem to have been on high alert as they approach the base here. King, Craze have so much loot to pick from here, and now they're just playing the storm for good measure.
Yeah, they're so far up above the damage threshold right now. More so compared to others, you know, you start to shockwave out early, you get tagged up on the way there, so they're just waiting for the last possible moment to combine those shockwaves, cover distance, make their way on out. Peterbot and Pollo kind of been positioned in Sinister Strip all game long, find themselves 18 below the damage threshold, and it's only been 3 games, but this kind of has been the theme so far for Peterbot and Pollo in today's tournament.
Yeah, speaking of which, them needing these critical tags, remind me of game 1 when we saw Queasy and Victor be below. And this was like that critical moment that they needed to find a tag. So for Peterbot, this is going to be his game 3 defining moment. Meanwhile, Agers, Veno, 75 below. Talk about damage being exchanged on all sides here. Agers ends up taking the bigger punishment from the high ground team. But on the low ground, you have Jace down here already setting up. So it's a bit of a scrappy fight unfolding here.
Oh, what a daring play there for Veno. You called it scrappy. That was a perfect way to kind of phrase that one. They're just willing to fight for everything, kind of flirting with that storm surge threshold above, below. You don't want it to activate. Agers does find his way to get that elimination, but they don't jump tremendously above the threshold because Agers took so much damage. So that's just going to be a small victory for Agers and Veno as of now, something to propel them into the next step of their game.
Yeah, it's not too bad. They earn a couple points here, but again, a very sloppy fight for them. And then you have Ree and Cooper who are probably thinking about their damage as well. So we'll see who ends up kind of involving themselves here in a couple moments. But Threats recognizing danger, he's going to have to put it all on the line. This is actually the best case for, scenario for them. They actually don't take too much there in the exchange. And now Veno and Agers at least buy themselves a little bit more damage.
Immediately shockwaving off. While all that's going down between Veno, Agers, visuals and threats. Liam and Jace use that as an opportunity to just kind of sneak their way on out. They already had some scratches on them. They're going to put band-aids as soon as they get to the zone and try to get themselves as close to 200 effective shield and HP. But again, these Storm Surge struggles going down all around the lobby. Reed and Cooper, a whole different rotation this game than the two prior. And you can see in how it's effective. No Cooper in this game. Reed struggling to get out of the box. And even if he does, he has to return back 116 below. And it looks like Storm Surge has activated as well. Big shot on the Boji. He's trying to climb his way up that ladder, but still 130 below.
All he has to do is get the Siphon here, and he actually has a fighting chance right now. These are his builds, but the Storm and the Surge are going to turn on here, and now you have to either pop the Chug or get the Siphon. You don't have a lot of time to work with. In the end, he misses the shot. Someone follows up behind him, but no, it's not going to be enough to stay alive. And what's crazy about that is, as we called it out, Ree and Cooper were just rotating past Veno and Agers. They actually went to the Storm, and Cooper fell to the hands of Booga, it seems, as he was flying to the safe zone. So super unfortunate. Quick turn of events for them. That's going to slow down their momentum. And remember, they were in 4th place here, basically tied with 3rd and 2nd. So now they're surely going to be set back.
And can you believe it all happened because a team is rotating in the water? They're not able to take their flotation device. They have to rotate on land, and that is what puts them below the damage threshold. Just goes to show, hey, that might be an important part of their overall strategy this weekend. But Peterbot, surprise attack coming from above. Poyo takes so much damage. They're above the threshold, but how far can they keep it that way, especially with Poyo taking damage and being forced outside of the zone? 5 tick per second towards the outside, so he is going to down the entire Chug Jug here.
Yeah, definitely. He doesn't really have another option. Meanwhile, Peterbot's already gone through all his shockwaves, gets caught there, and then loses the opportunity to actually shock himself too. This is just a world of trouble unfolding now. He's below the Surge. Great little find there, though, from Peterbot and Boyo to actually make the comps to get back together and shockwave their way through. I mean, if they manage to turn this around, that's going to be the key moment that you just watched unfold there. And that's one thing that professional players at the highest level like them will always do, is keep things interesting.
And you can see he's not being scarce with his materials. He knows he needs an elimination or a ton of damage to kind of stay ahead in this game
What
overall.
the fuck,
123.
Ferdinand?
A couple quick shots from Poyo are going to connect. They continue to
Ah, the
climb
bait
up
team.
that Storm Surge ladder.
Not
I'm not sure
good.
their problems are over with just yet.
What,
but they
hit
did
die
ease
now?
up on the tension
Oh,
so
no,
far.
hit-
Hey, Oxy
hit
and JoJo
fucking
trying to come from
happens,
behind
yes.
zone. Curve and Higgs continue their domination here in the 3rd game, finding more eliminations to help their own Storm Surge.
Meanwhile, Veno and Agers, they were at one point barely holding on, now flying ahead of the competition here. Already at 3 eliminations, they're making up for lost time from that game 2 early falling. Still managing to maintain a very high amount of average eliminations here, but look at this. Find Seek there in the process. The full quick elimination, now they're up to 4, and a big refresh for them here. That's a much wanted material count, even a refresh on the shockwaves too. Taki solo to the side, Vert solo in front of them as well.
Taki is going to get found out from the backside. Higgs and Curve, even though they have to rotate themselves, they're using those quick seconds to pressure everybody towards the outside, force them to use materials, resources, anything to simply just stay alive. And while they have priority position, they immediately shockwave towards the front and do it yet again. Zone after zone, Higgs and Curve finding clear-cut opportunities to increase their possession in the game, but also take down others. You see Chimp falling in the distance. Chimp in 20, forced to swerve off of Latte landing in this game.
Yeah, Cole took down Virgo as well in that rotate. That was a really tough one. Shadows by himself. Meanwhile, Agers, Veno lurking up on a build, forced to build here. They were about to set up an ambush into a box there. And this is what Veno does best. Again, setting up those lurk plays to give them a huge and massive advantage. But as we say that, Curve finds Shadow there too. Here comes the moving zones though. Victor V and Queasy are at the front side of this one. Curve and Higgs watching it all come crashing down towards them. This is where they're picking up big eliminations. In the first moving, they had no elims. Now they're at 3, potentially counting.
And while they're just kind of smoothly sitting, getting elims, ruining games, Cold actually took down Poyo as Queasy and Victor V continue to climb up that ladder. game after game. You know they're going to go up there, try to make a play for that high ground. You're seeing them kind of put a lot of pressure on towards that second height, so that way that team can no longer feel comfortable. But Higgs and Curve already rotated on out as Queasy, that second height, targeting yet again. Noxie Dash. There's so many players that could potentially try to fly their way up towards that high ground, so they got to keep their eyes peeled.
Yeah, we didn't really get to see this Storm Surge damage journey of Victor V and Queasy, but whatever they changed from game one is slowly and surely working more and more in their favor. Meanwhile, Ritual and Cold already at 4 eliminations here. This sleeper team, nothing too flashy just yet, but Cold normally has a highlight or two before the tournament's over. Meanwhile, Peterbot by himself here, clutching up, finding his way through a couple of points here. Not sure how early he lost his teammate, but he's going to be set down.
Yep, Storm Surge again being the problem for Peterbot and Pollo. Through 3 games, we need to see them kind of switch things up. But for Veno and Agers, honestly, it's just making it off of spawn is the only thing they need to do. This is honestly giving me feelings of Veno's domination in his major 1 win. If he can keep that up, we might be staring down a back-to-back opportunity, but Higgs has gone down. We said they have room for mistakes, but Curve, if he clutches up, will continue to hold on to the cushion they've built.
I mean, this is kind of crazy. They're already in the 200-point range, Higgs and Curve, and they're still earning points. Mind you, keep in mind, they are barely earning anything, but this is going to continue to give them that huge gap. But Victor V and Queasy have such control over the lobby. Cold, Ritual have managed to stay their way into the storm a little too long. You can see they're very hurt. Meanwhile, F9 and Moneymaker, I keep talking about that quiet play style. They're a sleeper team. Here goes, though. Muzz, Rise fighting for the high ground here. Jacob, the side shot onto Queasy was a miss, but Rise manages to maintain control here.
Yeah, this is another team that's a huge threat, kind of coming together at the last possible moment, even during the play-ins, having a bad day 1, but since then they have not looked back. They're trying to control the high ground. Victor V and Queasy, they're the ones forced to give it up, but Queasy is going to get dropped. Victor V scrambling around, trying to survive. No shield left, but he repositions with a shockwave. More than enough chug, but there's 0 time to actually use it and 0 builds to stay alive. Victor V and Curve, for that matter, will both be eliminated.
Such a quick turn of events there, and I still see Josh working his way through the mid-ground. Seems like he might be solo, but Cold and Ritual are the team finding momentum as their train is off on the tracks here to the races, doing very, very well for themselves. 7 eliminations now. Duo next door, they jump back into their box, and it's actually Josh who's kind of lurking about here. But here it goes into Acorn's box. They find Acorn, try to finish bolts, but it's not going to be enough. It's all up to Ritual now.
Yeah, he scrambles around, making sure to complete the elimination onto Acorn for the Siphon. Josh going on the chase, getting the Siphon just in time to stay alive. Noxie doing the same thing. Everybody just laying it all on the line. No stone left unturned. And even have Noxie and Josh trying to make a heroic effort, return back. Muzz spots him out for a second, but does not have ammo. He literally ran out at the last second, unable to get the elimination, but it's a moot point because Noxie still takes down Josh. 2v1 situation here for a win.
This is tough. Muzz doesn't have any ammo to work with. It's all up to Rise to put that high ground pressure down. And they're going to be forced into a shotgun battle. But Ozone and Golden, a team that have already qualified for the LAN event, they have nothing to lose. They're firing up. They're in the end game. Noxie's taking a fight with Muzz here. Muzz needs to secure this elimination, but Golden and Ozone are patient. They're waiting. Rise falls to the storm. Muzz finds one, goes up for the Siphon request, but no. Ozone and Golden slip away here. Ozone fighting for the storm. Muzz versus Ozone in a 1v1. Muzz is one of the sharpest when it comes down to it, but he has to hit the shot here and now. Can he get it, Jacob? It's looking close, and of course, he can secure the win. And just like that, he gets it with 8.
It definitely would have been a little bit easier. He really ran out of medium ammo at the last possible second. Rise as well. But I hear a noise in the distance. Is that Zeke?
Yeah. Sorry, I don't know if... What was that? That was a crazy sound. That wasn't me. There was no way that me, Muzz's #1 fan, that wasn't me. Anyway, Muzz and Rise, big victory out here in game number 3. Kelly, you know, when you're on such critically low ammo, that's a tough spot to be in, and yet in those final moments, this is just all experience. Buzz is like, dude, let's go. I'm about to win this game.
to see that you are in potential shambles as far as your loadout goes, but to still identify that height is vulnerable and that you guys have just enough to be able to steal it away, that is what Muzz and Rise do best. Find that opportunity, the little hitch in the armor of their opponents, and taking full advantage of it. But of course, it wasn't just the height steal. Rise and Muzz controlled that high ground quite well for the last few moments, and then made sure to not get overwhelmed, even having a player launch up onto them when it was potentially down to a 2v2. Again, they handled that well, but it coming down to Muzz in that final moment of a 1v1. And for me, I do appreciate the fact that Muzz prioritized the siphon in the final moment, or it was like the second to last elimination, so he was able to get topped off on that heal in that final fight against Ozone.
Yeah, Muzz and Rise, pulling a Zeke right there myself, just did such a good job of taking the high ground at the exact moment that they needed to. Kelly kind of talked about it, whether or not they knew that Victor V himself, I think Victor was kind of like dropping down the moment that they kind of went up for the high ground. So it was just so well timed that it was just Queasy up there who was not going to go ahead and opt to actually defend it. So they effectively kind of got it for free. And then it was just a clutch from Muzz. I mean, he played this so well. You can see he's just kind of constantly resetting the edits to go ahead and try to bait out that shot, trying to make sure that he takes no damage in the process of cleaning that one up. And sure enough, he didn't take any damage and cleaned it up well. So shout out to Muzz and Rise, man. Listen, second place in game number 1. Game number 2 didn't go so well for them. They win in game number 3. They're going to soar back up the leaderboard.
I can't wait for you guys to see where they currently are. First, a break. When we return, we'll take a look at these leaderboards. We'll see you in a second.